that is most important right now to talk about is the gift that keeps on giving. So we had the trade deadline that has just passed in the NBA. I talked a little bit about we actually talked about it on last show, as well as I mentioned it on my Thursday episode, talking through what some of these trades are going to look like, where players are going to end up, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And then, of course, with the trade deadline, shortly after always comes the buyout season, because that's when teams who can't move their players and want to get rid of them anyway, go ahead and buy them out, and they're available for the masses on Sunday. Yes. Well, we had two acquisitions Sunday evening at 5 o'clock when they cleared waivers. LaMarcus Aldridge made it known that he will be joining the Brooklyn Nets. So he will be joining and teaming up with Blake Griffin, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden to create a legitimate super team. Like legitimately, which is also, debatable. And then Andre Drummond, big man with the Cleveland Cavaliers, has decided that after his 5 o'clock hit, he's signing with the Los Angeles Lakers. So he's now joining Anthony Davis and LeBron James and the rest of the Lakers squad. So the interwebs went wild over this. Everyone was pretty pissed off at the fact that LaMarcus Aldridge went to the Nets. I was actually surprised that they were able to get him. But they did enough maneuvering to make sure they have enough money in the cap. And I think the amount that he's taken is like $700,000, which is whatever he gave up in San Antonio or something like that, or 1.5, whatever. The contract really, numbers don't matter. They were able to fit him in underneath their cap, and the Lakers were able to fit Andre Drummond in their hard cap and still have space to sign one more player. So Jimmy, with all of these signatures that we have seen hit this paper, out of the two teams in the East and the West, which one do you think is the better squad?
Better squad, it's the Lakers. It's the Lakers for two reasons. One, as we talked about before, anytime things are even and LeBron James is on one of those rosters, that roster is the best roster.
Yeah.
So now that he's got Andre Drummond, now they have their third star to match what the Brooklyn Nets have with their top three stars. All things being equal, you take LeBron James's roster. That's one reason why. Second reason why is this. Let's say these two teams meet in the finals. Okay? Let's say everybody's healthy, everybody plays. Most likely what will happen is, to some degree, the big three of LA and the big three of the Nets will nullify each other. They'll be able to match each other because you have really three great players on each side.
I see what you mean.
So then it's going to come down to 4 through 6. So you look at the Lakers, their 4 through 6 is Dennis Schroeder, Montrezl Harrell, and Kyle Kuzma, versus the Brooklyn Nets 4 through 6. We'll say Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, who they got in buyout, as you mentioned, and Joe Harris. Between those two 4 through 6s, I still take the Lakers to have the edge over Brooklyn, primarily because Aldridge and Blake Griffin are not what they used to be. Whereas Schroeder's still young, so is Montrezl Harrell, so is Kuzma. So all that combined, I say the Lakers have the best roster.
I'm with you on that. That's actually the thing I thought first when I saw that they were able to pick up Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge. I mean, Blake Griffin has been on the downward spiral since, it looks like, 1920. Well, last year, the year before, his first year in Detroit,
he's an old man.
He only played 25 games because he was hurt. 19 points a game. The next year was 24 and a half. Then he went to 15 and a half in 1920 and only 18 games. And then this year, he's roughly, with Brooklyn, averaging 9 points, averaging about 12 points when he was in Detroit, with an total average of like 11.8. He is not who he was before. This is not the Blake Griffin of yesteryear. Like I mentioned, even last show, he dunked for the first time since 2019.
Which is absurd to even hear you say that.
For a guy like him, yes. Yeah. Yes. And then let's add to it with LaMarcus Aldridge. 13 points a game this season so far. Last year, he averaged 18. And then the year before that, in 18-19, 21. And he's been in San Antonio 5 years. So since he's been in San Antonio, 18 points a game, 17, 23, 21, 18, and 17. He's played for the most part through the full seasons, but he's not putting up the numbers that we're used to at him, and he's not rebounding like he used to. So I agree with you on that because I don't see... Everyone's going crazy over the fact that Brooklyn was able to pick up these players, but I feel like Brooklyn picking up these players is similar to the Lakers picking up Karl Malone and Gary Payton. Not the fact that they're old, but the fact that they're probably not going to contribute like everyone thinks.
See, and that's the thing. Well, and that That sucks for Brooklyn. It really does. But you see where Brooklyn's strategy was. After they made the trade to get James Harden, they sacrificed a lot of their bench and a lot of their depth that would help them in the paint, like Jared Allen, which was a huge loss for them.
Yep.
So we already knew they were going to have to make some moves, get some bigs in order to address that. So they got bigs in Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge, but not the kind that they truly needed to match somebody who can put up 20-20 and 5 blocks like Andre Drummond. So you see what Brooklyn's strategy is to get through the playoffs and to get to the finals is to just outscore everybody. Because Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge have never been defensive players. They've been good rebounders, but they don't command the paint. That's never been their game. So you see they're saying, okay, we aren't going to be able to get the kind of bigs in here to contend with a bigger team. So we're just going to have to outscore everybody.
Yep. And I think the biggest difference between what the Lakers did and what the Nets did when it comes to acquiring the players in the buyout market, the Lakers went after an actual need. Yeah. They needed another post defender, another post player, and someone to actually rebound. More, not as much defender, but more so someone to clog up the paint and that can as good at rebounding. Andre Drummond is still maintaining in his double-digit rebound area. Now, he's gone down the last 2 years in Cleveland to 11 rebounds and 13 rebounds this year, but he's still around the 17-point range, which he's always been. That's who we got. He's a complementary piece to another team, to another star. He's not the star. He's always been a complement. And it's showing in his numbers overall because a star doesn't average 17 a game. His career average is 14, and he's around 17. LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin are known as being stars. They were the focal point of the team, and their numbers have plummeted. That's telling in a sport where your athleticism and your ability to make things happen really stands out. And that's, to me, that's the thing that makes Brooklyn, to me, not be as much a threat. And then also the last thing, the one thing I told you all, the reason why Brooklyn won't win the championship and why I can't bet on them, even though Vegas wants to give them the favorite spot. Who's going to actually play when the playoffs come? We don't know. Let's be honest. None of these players have really been that healthy besides James Harden. James Harden's a tank. That dude plays forever. But the problem with tanks is that they do run out of gas if you do not have fuel ready.
But couldn't you say the same thing about the Lakers, who are still without Anthony Davis and are going to be without LeBron James even longer than that?
Well, that's the thing. We don't know when they're going to come back. You are right. But let me ask you this question.
Okay.
How reliable has LeBron been whenever they actually had championship runs?
Oh, very reliable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, this injury to him does worry me because he's old. He's 36 years old. I mean, he's not too far. He's a year younger than me. So having an injury like that, I mean, I know I rolled my ankle. I forgot what I did. I probably did it in my sleep and don't realize it. But my ankle was sore probably for about a month. And me and my doctor couldn't figure out why. I actually even got an MRI on it. And they were like, nope, looks normal. I'm like, oh, great. So you're telling me I'm just old. I appreciate that statement. So I don't know how long LeBron's going to be down from this ankle injury, mainly because it's a high ankle sprain and it's his age because his ankle went the wrong direction. That's worrisome. But because of the investment that he's done in his body that I have not done at all for me, I expect him to come back stronger than he did when he left and be able to make it through the playoffs. Especially, like I said, mainly because of how he has invested in his body. Anthony Davis, I have no clue. We probably won't even see him to the second round.
Now, here's the thing. Wow. Second round?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to see him to the second round. And I think that's probably going to be by design. I think they're going to purposely just leave him out until they have to bring him in.
With what I was just getting ready to say, that would hurt them even further because here's my worry with the Lakers is that this big three that they now have, when will be the point that they can get on the court together to figure out how to play with each other and build chemistry? Because at least with Brooklyn, those three, their big three, have had at least a little time with each other, so they at least have some tape, some idea of how they're supposed to try to play with each other. The Lakers aren't going to have that, especially if you're talking about Anthony Davis is not going to be there till the second round of the playoffs.
Well, that's the thing is you really don't need that with this, the way this team is set up. Look at it. Look at this. Does Andre Drummond need the ball?
No.
Okay. There you go. Your additional piece to it does not require the ball at all. Like literally, he can get all of his points off the garbage from rebounds. You have no reason to fully try to integrate him into I'll put it like this. He'll be integrating the offense with Dennis Schroeder and them because he'll probably play more times with him, Montrezl Harrell, than he will with LeBron and Anthony Davis. So to be absolutely honest, this is actually a good thing for him. He'll be able to actually integrate within plays and not have to worry about the freelancing that a LeBron James does and then try to integrate.
Well, it depends on what will make him happy. Honestly, if he's happy with that, that's perfect. That's great for the Lakers. But if he wants some of the offense to flow through him, you have to appease him because, and this is what's smart about the move that the Lakers made, this is not only for need, this is about future as well. Because think about it. If you get him and Anthony Davis and you get them on the right deals, they could be the new Twin Towers of the NBA. They could rule LA for the next 4 to 5 seasons. So this takes you beyond that. And I think that that's what LeBron James knows. And that's part of what they probably used to sell Andre Drummond to come there instead of Brooklyn or instead of the Clippers, which, I mean, the Clippers, God, they're making it really hard for me to stick to my pick. But he says to him, forget being in the LA market, all the off-court marketability you're going to have, competing for championships. Forget about that. You're going to be able to be with this team for 3 or 4 or 5 years, however long you want to be, because the organization is going to invest in you. So then your name will be mentioned after spending all that time in Cleveland and Detroit with the greats of LA, with Shaq, with Chamberlain, with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's going to be you. You're going to be in that conversation.
Yeah, that is true. They do have that leverage point in conversation. And a good thing for them is, like, Andre Drummond's 27 years old. So he's basically hitting his peak, or if not in his peak now.
Did any of these guys even take the phone call from the Clippers?
The Clippers got a phone?
They don't give them a phone in the Staples.
Sure didn't seem like it.
I feel bad for them. Again, I talked about the Rajon Rondo pickup on my solo show during the trade deadline, but outside of that,
it's still was a good move for them to bring in a veteran point guard that knows the playoffs.
Yeah, but this isn't going to help them against LA. Right now, if I'm LA, I'm looking at Denver with the moves that they did with JaVale McGee and with Aaron Gordon. Those were so good. Two really good
you were spot on
Excellent
with that,
moves.
And that was the assessment that I felt like, and I was going to talk about that, but that maybe for another day.
Yeah.
That was probably the best pickup. Now, there is something interesting that did hit as we're extending this a lot longer than I wanted to, but 2 teams made moves that I think people really didn't pay attention to like they should have. One was Chicago. So you saw the Bulls made like 2 or 3 moves, and everybody's of course, the first thing in mind is what? The Bulls where the Bulls at? They're like 9th or 10th. They have a play-in coming up.
Yes.
So pick the 7th and 8th seed will play each other, and then the 9th and 10th seed will play each other. The winner of the 7th and 8th gets the 7th spot. The loser plays the winner of the 9th and 10th. And then the winner of that gets the 8th spot. That's how it's set up for this play-in. So Chicago's gunning for one of those spots. And to be honest, adding Vucevic out there with Zach LaVine, people need to be a little bit more worried in the East about them. They're a little bit more scary with that combination because LaVine is having a career year. He's playing. Did you know that he is on the cusp of a 50-40-90 season?
I did not know that.
He is shooting almost 40. He's shooting 50% from the field, 40 from 3. And I think he's a hair under 90% from the line. That's absurd.
That is absurd.
I was not expecting that out of Zach LaVine, and neither was ESPN. That's the reason why he was like number 59 or 60 for the season on the list. No one expected him to blow up like this, and he blew up. He is sitting at, right now, the free throw line, 86% from the line, but he's shooting 8 threes a game and 43% clip. Absurd. This might be the most efficient season I think I've ever seen in NBA history as far as top players. I was going through some of the stuff on Basketball Reference. I'm going to post this on my Twitter later on tonight. But they're like 8 players at the cuffs of hitting 50-40-90 this season, with 2 of them being big men. Stupid. Stupid.
That is.